back to Stever Garage. So today I've got my trailer all hooked up and I'm heading to pick up, somebody's selling 2 Honda XR frames, rolling frames. So wheels, tires, suspension, frames. And one of them has a frozen motor in it. And I don't really know what other stuff he has. He just kind of says that they were 2 parts bikes and he was going to do a suspension conversion or whatever. But I happen to have a spare engine from my parts bike and pretty much everything else with the exception of a frame. And he's selling these frames for 300 bucks. So no titles, but I might do the lost title procedure for Washington. And I got 2 frames, so probably could make one working bike out of it, but 300 bucks for 2 rolling frames and a blown engine. So I'm gonna head there and pick those up, and hopefully it's a good deal, and I think I can make at least one good bike out of it. I'm hoping I can use my other parts and make 2, because these motors are super cheap to rebuild. So anyways, I'll check back and hopefully I'll have 2 bikes. Alright, so I'm home now. I got the bikes home. Got this one and this one. I've already pulled the motor out of this one really quick. It was already kind of stripped down, but I got a whole bunch of extra parts. Some of these parts were mine that I already had, but I've got one complete motor. This one did not have a motor. Those tank decals alone were worth the trip for me because I want to put them on my XR. I was kind of happy about that. But a whole bunch of extra parts. This bike should be able to complete this bike out just with what I've got. And then this one, I'm gonna have to use my spare motor. So I have a parts motor there with everything. So I'm gonna make one complete bike and then try to cannibalize one more. But I've already ordered like a top end kit and some more parts, but I'm gonna get this engine on the stand and figure out why it's frozen. And then we'll go from there. But project's already moving along. All right, so we got the engine broken down. I don't know if this piston's like some high performance piston or something. I've never seen a piston on an XR with the valve cavities receded so far, so I'm kind of interested, and I can read the number off of it, so I might look into that. But anyways, the problem with this motor and the reason it's frozen is it wasn't seized. The main wrist pin on the piston is seized, so the piston literally won't rotate this way, which is pretty sweet because that means the cylinder's not scorned up too bad, and that was the point of failure. The problem for me now is I need to get that piston off, so I'm gonna try to get the C-pins little clips removed, and I think I'm gonna use this bolt right here that I'm using for my engine stand. Should be able to run that through the piston bearing, maybe, and then maybe I can find like a socket and then a big socket on the other side, then tighten it and just try to press it out somehow. But I'm gonna give that a shot and see if I can get it removed, and once it's removed, it's just a matter of getting a rebuild kit, honing out the cylinder and putting it back together, and that should be good in the engine department. Obviously I could go through the whole motor, but everything transmission wise, I was spinning it through. Everything seems to be hooked up correctly, so I'm gonna do a new timing chain just because I don't feel right putting motors back together without new timing chains that have been through some sort of failure, and some guides, and we'll do some new bolts and stuff. But I think this is gonna be it for this one. Should be pretty easy. I'm just gonna be waiting a couple weeks on parts, and we'll go from there. I'll see if I can get this piston off. Alright, so we got the motor out and we got the piston off. The way I had to go about doing that was when you have a piston that's stuck, when the wrist pin's stuck, you usually make a contraption, pull it off. The way that I do that, and this is hard to show with this piston because the wrist pin's already out, but essentially you take a long bolt, this grade, I think this is grade 8, get as strong a bolt as you can, and then something to press. This happens to be, it doesn't slide in there now because it's all beat up, but this happened to be the right size. You can also buy like some bushings if they are the right size that slip in there. So I'll use this for the example. I did use this one in the end. So you got your bolt, and then you got your bushing. And then what you'll do on the other side is you get either a big socket, or in this case, I bought these big nuts because they were big enough that the pin could slip through them. And then you put them on the other side, piston in the middle. And then you get some washers and a nut or two, and you start tightening. And as you tighten, it'll push this through, which essentially pushes that out. And so that's what I did. So I had this like this, and then I had some nuts and washers on this side, and as it pressed, it pushed it out all the way until it got to here, and then I relaxed everything. And then obviously the piston just comes off then because the wrist pins, and you can see like the wrist pin is still stuck there. Trying to see. It's hard to see inside there, but it was pretty seized up. So anyways, you know, $5 in bolts and you can press it out of there. Of course, you can. I'm probably gonna have to use this again and again because I've got a couple motors here that seems to be the trend is they get stuck, or some of them are seized up on there and some of them are just kind of tough to get off, and you don't want to beat on your crank with a hammer. So next discrepancy I have to deal with. When I got this motor, I got a bunch of parts that came with it, and I obviously don't know why people. I didn't know if the parts were for this motor or another motor, or who knows. It was a lot of stuff. But the shifter on here happens to be welded.
Weld anything from the crack of dawn to broken hearts, from eggshell to spider webs.
So I'm guessing the splines were slipping, and the guy just decided to weld it on there, which sucks because now we have to grind it off and replace it, which is right here. I've done that before. I've had to replace one of those, never the shaft, but I've replaced the shift star and shift plate, because when these bikes have trouble shifting, a lot of the times it's that's the shift plate, and then the shift star is like the cog that the shifter moves on. Anyways, in the parts, the person has a brand new Honda shift plate, it's one of the springs, and a new shaft. So they already, this is like a probably $90 part. So a new shaft with new splines. It's weird to me because it's in the Honda bag, but it kind of looks used. I'm not entirely sure what the deal with that is. The splines all look good. And like I said, it's in the Honda bag, so I don't know if it was like a used part or what, but it doesn't look strangely worn or anything. And I should be able to tell if it's the right one. It does in fact look like the right one. So they even have all the other parts too, the little rollers there. So this is the shift star. This is the roller that goes on the shift star. So when you feel like you're clicking into your gears, that's literally this roller feeding along on them. You can see neutral there in the center between the two gears. A lot of these bikes, if they won't find neutral or won't stay neutral, it's because those sides are worn down. And the spring and a couple other things. So the only thing I have left to do for teardown on this motor then is just to grind that end off of the shaft. The way these are in there is the shaft is in there like this, and once you take all the stuff off this side, the shaft just slides through the case and then you can remove it. Well, in this case I can't do that because the shaft is welded on there, so I need to cut it, and then I need to make sure there's no burrs on it because it'll take the seal with it on the way out if there is. So, or it just won't go through the case. So anyways, that's next. Once I get that off, once I get it ground off, I'm gonna have to come in here and take the oil slinger off, which is these three. Then there's a special bolt in here that you need a Honda key for, which I have. And then we have to take the clutch off, which is just these four. All the plates will come off, and then to take the basket off. Once again, it's just the key, and then I'll be able to access all of the pieces for the shift thing. And like I said, you don't have to crack the case for that. It'll just slide on out. Once that's all done, we can put this side back together, put the new shaft in, put the clutch case cover on. We need to pull this off. which is easy. You just use the axle bolt, and that's your flywheel puller. Pull the flywheel off. We'll put our new timing chain in, and new guide, and then load our piston, load our top end, and we're on our way. If you want more in depth of how to do some of this stuff, I have some other videos on my channel for XR200s, but that's where we're at. All right, here we go. Hopefully this goes smoothly.
Hey boys, step aside, time to let the big dog work his magic.
And doesn't catch on fire or something.